Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Fernando Sicchos Jimenez. I'm the Secretary General of the European Builders Confederation, EBC. EBC is the organization representing construction crafts and SMEs, with a team based in Brussels, which is very happy that you join us today for one of the final events of a project that is dear to us, as it was one of the first Horizon 2020 initiatives that we embarked on. The project is called BIM4Ren, BIM for Renovation, basically. Today, we're very happy that you join us. We know that there are many events going on in the context of the European Sustainable Energy Week, but we thought let's say, a conversation about the situation regarding BIM in renovation, regarding the digitalization of our sector and the skills and the workforce that is needed to deal with those issues was necessary. Today, the event will be split in 3 parts, with one quick presentation of the project BIM4Ren, a presentation of the main outcomes of BIM4Ren, notably a training program dedicated targeting SMEs, and a 3rd session more on a policy-oriented discussion. But before all that, I'm very happy, I'm very pleased that Ms. Electra Papadaki from DG Grow, from the unit construction, joined us in order to share her thoughts about, let's say, the role of construction in the twin green and digital transition that is foreseen by the European Union, and also the role that indeed this kind of initiative plays in order to put some light on very specific issues related to the digitalization and greening of our industry. Without further ado, I will give the floor to Electra. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you very much, Fernando, for the invitation. I am very glad to be here in one of these final events of the BIM4Ren project. Through this project, and if I may say, you are front runners, having demonstrating that digital technologies can be enablers of the green transition, and that BIM is not only reserved to large infrastructure projects and their design and construction, but it can also be applied to renovation. So again, I think that this project deserves congratulations. And it is an example of a project that can feed into policy making in this sense. Currently in DG Grow, in the unit responsible for construction, we are drafting the transition pathway, a roadmap for the greening, digitalization and resilience of the construction ecosystem. Among many critical topics that we examine also needs and propose actions to be carried out by the Commission, Member States, public administrations, but also, of course, industry, academia, and other stakeholders. We are looking into challenges and opportunities for the sustainable competitiveness, for the governance, for skills and people, research, innovation and technological solution, investments and funds. And also in the conditions and needs for SMEs, this critical part of the construction ecosystem that is composed mainly by SMEs. These conditions and needs construction stakeholders reported to us through an open consultation that ran in the beginning of this year in the context of the development of this roadmap. So what we hear from stakeholders is that SMEs have to deal particularly with lack of capital to invest, costs in general, staff shortages, and often confusion on the very complicated context of legislation and available instruments. We are also working with the public sector on the other side in order to accelerate renovations. Of course, you are all aware of the renovation wave and all the supporting instruments that are deployed in European and local level to accelerate the modernization of the building stock. But we also see the use of digitalization in that, as you too, and the use of digitalizing the administration behind building and renovation. So there, by mainstreaming the use of BIM, digitalizing the permit systems, using digital building logbooks, we can assure transparency and trust in construction, and we can achieve faster, better, easier renovations. So it's also a way through digitalization to increase the attractiveness of the sector to young people, to women and others that are currently underrepresented. So I will go towards the end of my introduction with two more concrete points towards you. The first is that we give a lot of importance to engagement with stakeholders, and I really invite you, if you haven't done it yet, to register in the High-Level Construction Forum community and stay up to date with initiatives in the area of construction. Currently, we have two consultations ongoing. The one in the area of circular economy, where we're examining what is the use of circular economy principles by construction companies. And the other is in the area of digital building logbooks, where we are collecting expert views, especially in the area of different databases available for construction and buildings across member states. We are also having in our calendar two dedicated events on innovation in the 19th and 20th of October. It is two webinars where we will discuss new ways of collecting and using data and new ways of building. There we will make specific mentions to Horizon projects that are already awarded, but also we will give an idea of what could come up next. So I think this could be interesting for your community as well. Second, I want to mention specifically a website that we launched last week that is dedicated specifically to the digitalization of construction SMEs. With big thanks, of course, to EBC and other European level organizations for feeding into this work. Through this website, you can access basically a toolkit of tools available for SMEs in their digitalization journey. First of all, a digital maturity scan that can help companies to evaluate their level of digital maturity, an interactive handbook that supports them to further improve. You can also find a calendar for in-depth trainings on digitalization, and a set of good practices of construction SMEs implementing different digital transformation projects. And there, of course, if you are representing a project or an SME and you believe that you are front runners, we will be happy to show this in this website. This work focuses a lot on BIM, which we agree that is a cornerstone for the digital transformation of the sector, but it's also looking into opportunities of linking BIM or using independently technologies such as 3D printing, 3D scanning, robotics, etc. Again, we are particularly proud of this project because, of course, it's not a policy initiative, but it is a practical support to companies, and sometimes we have to act in all territories. With this last point, I want to thank again EBC for the invitation and the continuous collaboration that we have. And I'm wishing you a very fruitful webinar. I will stay in listening mode. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Electra. Indeed, there are many things going. I also see that it seems that we have a few digital issues with the platform. Thanks a lot again for your intervention. Just to reassure us, a few attendants, Electra just presented or thought there were no presentations, so don't be scared. You didn't miss a PowerPoint presentation in any kind. Great, thank you very much for that. And indeed, I also need to give a further look, but from what I first saw, this new website on the digitalization of construction SMEs is really worth having a look at. So I would recommend everyone to go and check it out. Then going directly to the next step. The next step would be for us to have a quick introduction of what BIM4Ren is, how BIM4Ren was conducted over the last 4 years, because indeed the project is ending this month, basically this week. And now we'll give the floor to Antoine Duguet from the French RTO Novatec INF4, which is actually the organization coordinating the project BIM4Ren. So the floor is yours, Antoine.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for this introduction, Fernando. Thank you for, let's say, hosting this event. Thanks also to Electra for this nice introduction and for the support from the European Commission to this kind of project, more importantly, to this kind of development that focus on delivering tools for the practitioners. So here I am, and I will use 15 minutes to introduce this BIM4Ren project, which is the project is finished, but the tools will live on, let's say, and much more, let's say, output from the project will be presented in the follow-up presentation by my colleagues. So the BIM4Ren project, that stands for the BIM-based tools for fast and efficient renovation, started 4 years ago. And the starting point, this is something that was a bit summarized just before, is the fact that, and I guess you're all aware of that, the existing buildings are responsible for 40% of the total energy consumption and 38% of gas, let's say, greenhouse gas emission. So there is a need for this renovation, and you all know also that the renovation rate is closer to 1%, while it should go to more like 3%. At this stage, at this rate, we would be living more or less in the same buildings in 30 years. Just 20% of the building would have changed, and 80% of the building will still be the same. So you see that there is a need for the renovation of those buildings. And while this is a huge stake, I mean, huge stake for Europe, but also a huge stake, I mean, let's say, for the climate, the construction sector might not be in a situation to handle this with capacities, because it has a low productivity and it has a low use of digital tools. And it's very key and to have in mind that this construction sector is essentially made of SMEs with less than 10 employees, or self-employers, you know. And while they might be small, let's say, but the numbers of those SMEs, they represent more than the half of the activity. I mean, if you put in euros, more than half of the activity, economic activity related to the construction sector. So it's, as we say, it's not easily accessible for the SMEs, mainly due to discrepancies, let's say, between those tools and the need of the practitioners. Also because there is a necessary investment related to either the purchasing of software, the training, those capacities. So we need to adapt those tools to put those in the hand of those practitioners. And just to go back, but again, it's not very new here, but like the productivity has actually declined, and so this is one thing, obviously, and the labor force is they're almost self-employed. So to put it very simply, and not those graphs, to put it in the shoes, let's say, of those practitioners, it's when you have a 10 people company, if you need to have dedicate few weeks to learn new tools, it's an investment. If you need to pay those softwares, this is quite an investment. And it is quite important to see that it's investment which is even harder when there's not so much culture for research and development, or let's say this kind of investment. So this is something that to be seen as well, as let's say, potentially not a disease, obviously, but something that hinders the capacity of the sector, and that could clearly be improved. Well, the benefits of digitalization have been proven. Okay, it improves efficiency, meaning efficiency in the collaboration, efficiency in avoiding, let's say, waste, efficiency also for the energy environmental performance, and especially it allows to have these, the energy gap in between what's expected and what is measured. It allows to narrow this gap. And so behind this digitalization, there are lots of, let's say, keywords, and well, more importantly, those are very deep, let's say, knowledge areas for which there are plenty of investigation, but they seem to be quite far, let's say, from the needs of the daily practitioners. So those technologies exist, but we do not use them. Okay, let's say not to their full potential. And their full potential might not be to make them, more complex, but rather more accessible. So we need to find better ways to reskill and upskill those construction workforce. And so this is the idea, this concept of saying, okay, either we anticipate and progress, or we wait, and particularly to wait for this kind of change would not be, let's say, a smart move. Okay, so here we have BIM. BIM has a potential for renovation, but first try to say what BIM is. It can be seen as quite dual. It can refer both to the collaborative process, where across the, let's say, along the life cycle of a building, starting from design, construction, operation, maintenance, and even end of life, it's a way to manage the information between the actors using a digital representation of a building, but it is also as itself a format, a semantically enriched model to gather and exploit this information that describe the building. Again, it's not just the 3D, but it's also information about the modules, information even about potentially the installation, information about the characteristic of each component of a building. So it potentially allows a more efficient and work between all those stakeholders. And so why BIM can be quite relevant for renovation? The idea for this project starts with the very simple point, which is, okay, for renovation, the building already exists. And with this building that already exists, there's plenty of information to gather. So what year, was it built? If I want to do any renovation, what's the cost? What's the current energy performance? What's the geometry of this building? What's the state, let's say, of, I don't know, like even the entrance, the window, the tightness? What are the occupants? What do they expect from this renovation? So all this information needs to be gathered. So there are ways to develop, to gather this information, and then to manage this information. And when we say to manage this information, well, to make it accessible to all stakeholders, to organize this information, but also to secure this information. And the idea is to exploit this information for the further steps. The further steps is to design the potential renovation scenarios. What if I change the windows? What if I improve the gas boiler? What if and all those questions should be quite easily answered, with the idea that then it should be exploited for the on-site, let's say, workers, the contractors, to use it as designs for the renovation action itself. So those tools that mostly focus on the preparation, let's say, of the renovation, rather than the full focus on on-site activities, or integrated in a one-stop access platform. So this is something that is now available, and that gather more or less 30 tools that have been developed in the project that can be about this data collection for the geometry acquisition, for the HVAC system characterization, collecting the stakeholders' needs, and so on. It can also assess the potential energy performance of different renovation scenarios, and so on and so on. So you can have access. The easiest is to go to the BIM4Ren project, and from there have access to this platform where at least all tools are presented, and there are some workflows to guide in the use of those tools. So to put more practically, what we did during the project is looking at practices, again, related to the renovation project. So we mapped as a workflow the different interaction between the users, the data that was flowing around. And we had an extended workflow, generic, but we made it a simple one. Okay, so it's about initial strategic planning, when you wonder, the building owner mainly, will I do this renovation? But at this stage, they can contract a company. Then there is the data gathering, okay, which can happen off-site or on-site, where you collect this information. The diagnosis is how you interpret this information and to say, okay, this is the state of my building as it is now before renovation. And the design is about defining, okay, now that I want to define this renovation and then carry it out, I need to work on those renovation scenarios. And across those steps, we need to manage this data. We need to manage this information. And so we used 3 different pilots, okay, 3 different cases, not only for the buildings, they were different and complementary, but also because the actors related to them. So in Spain, it was a privately owned building close to the seashore in San Sebastian. The focus was led by SME, actually, which specializes in renovation of facade. In France, it was mainly the focus on a social housing organization that manages almost 10 to 20 renovation yearly. So it's about how to improve the process at early stage. In Italy, it was a large construction, large renovation, and here we're focusing on larger contractors, meaning a real estate contractor, a general contractor, and architects as a design team. So what I can say, just to highlight examples, and then you will have actually some few demonstration of some tools. The idea is to start, for example, by gathering all information from the strategic planning, and then example of tools at this point. Okay, there is one tool which is about extracting information from existing documents. So you might have plenty of well, potentially as papers printed or PDF information about your building, which is might not be really exploited. Let it be the visit reports of the gas boiler and so on. So the idea is to scan this information, to organize information for it to be easily retrieved afterward. So this is the tool MassDoc. Then there is WiseBeam that I will present just after, which is about elevating a 2D layout into a BIM model. And once, well, in this case, as you can see, by doing off-site analysis, you have a model, you have information. Then the idea is to have this BIM model as to assess what's the state of the building now. And then you go on, okay, what I might do is I want to do some energy simulation. What if I improve the windows? What will be the impact? What should I do first? Windows, the renovation of the walls, the change of the mechanical air renewal, and so on. So this is the idea of assessing different renovation scenarios. And when you do that, well, you might wonder, what about the sun? If I want to add some PV panels? This is the BIM Solar tool that I will present afterwards. But you can also assess what would be the cost, the energy consumption, the CO2 emission, the comfort, as multi-criteria early analysis when you can consider so many potential renovation scenarios. And I'm getting close to the end. So what more or less we showed, our conclusion is that there are simple, fast, efficient tools that can help in this information management. Okay, this is something that we showed. There's plenty of room for improvement for sure. Those tools can be independent. Okay, they're all, let's say, they can be used separately, but they are even more powerful when put together, meaning in a workflow. And the idea is what we want to focus to strengthen on is while the project progresses, goes on, we can add more information. So if you start at the very beginning with a BIM model, even with low information, low level of detail, you can improve it, and by the end of the project, you have something which is more, let's say, useful. It's important to, it can be seen as a burden, okay, an additional burden for the contractors. That it's actually key to whose role is, I mean, what are the roles of the different actors. But in the end, it benefits all. It benefits the building owner, it benefits the contractors, and so on. And so what Valentina will present afterwards from GBC, that one of the output of the project is a white paper, but I would just mention a few of the key messages that we want to strengthen. For the practitioners, that's what I just said. The ideas, we can start the project by using BIM. And it's very key to say that the needs of the drivers, meaning that if we want to use at the beginning, for example, heavy scan technologies, it could be too much, and it will not only be a high cost, but it will then be quite chaotic to handle in the afterwards. Although it's easier to say than to do, let's say it's really important to invest in training. Training can start as easily as checking some free tools. And this is the example that we have, not committing 2 weeks or even 1 year. We can start this training idea, can start very easily. And we in the project, we are delivering a website with some training materials. For the developers, okay, the company that develops some tools, well, to check the client's needs. It's not all about making the most powerful technologies, but also about making it simple. Hopefully using OpenBIM. To put it simple, OpenBIM allows in a standardized format, allows better interoperability between different tools. And well, another point is, well, cost, as we all know, it's quite an important factor. So if it can be integrated in the tool, it's better. And for the policymakers, they just say that while BIM is encouraged in a European directive, it should also be strengthened for renovation works where it makes sense. And if we were to wonder that for each building, it would come with not this description, which is the idea of the digital building logbook. If it could come also with a building renovation passport, meaning, okay, I have this building that I'm, for example, even buying, building owners, potentially houses, dwelling, or whatever. If it couldn't come with information of its current state, but also if I do renovation with cost assessment, energy consumption, and so on, it will make it clearer. And with more information, it's easier to make a wise decision. And last but not least, let's say that for the building owners, in this case, managing a bit public and private, BIM models, or as I said, can be seen as burden, additional burden, but if it should be valorized, meaning that either in a public tender, maybe not put it mandatory at the very beginning, but say that if it's delivered in BIM, it's additional points, let's say, for this tender. And for a privately owned building, well, we know that the BIM model then can help even in the operation and maintenance. So it should also be seen as an investment. I know that it can be seen as extra cost, but in the long run, it could be beneficial. And the idea is, okay, should we make it mandatory? It's more a question. It's something which is discussed in few countries. In Finland, for example, it's being made mandatory in some specific cases of publicly owned buildings. And that would be all for this presentation of the BIM4Ren project.
Thank you very much, Antoine. Thanks a lot. I think there is indeed a lot to say about this initiative. So we were maybe a bit ambitious to create a Q&A session after each part of the event. So we will keep your questions for after the next session, which is going to present very specific outcomes of the project. So I will rather invite the speakers of the next session, and we will make a Q&A after their presentations. So I will ask Valentina Marino, who is responsible for international activities in the Green Building Council Italy, the Italian chapter. Director of GBC to join us. Also to Professor Jacob Bates from the University of Aachen, who is also a partner of the BIM4Ren project. And then Antoine, of course, as he will also present certain tools that were developed in the context of the project. Thank you very much. So I will maybe start with Valentina, who will introduce us to the one of the main outcomes, that is the training part, and then I will give the floor to Jacob to explain a bit the methodology, and that was the methodology that we use and that led to development of certain tools, presenting also one of the tools that was developed, and then Antoine will present two other tools. There are many more, but we picked 3 because we thought those were a few of those that maybe are or will resonate more with construction SMEs. The floor is yours, Valentina.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can you hear me well?
Yes, thank you.
Good. Thank you. I just will pass on presenter mode. If you don't see moving my slide, just let me know. Okay. So yes, very shortly, as the time is running, I would like to introduce the training activities of the BIM4Ren project. That basically, starting with why. So why should all the actors of the supply chain be trained on digitalization? Well, first of all, because we need to facilitate the collaboration between the actors during the renovation processes, but not only the designers, the different type of designers and consultants, but also SMEs and all the supply chain, the suppliers of technologies and materials as well. Because we need to facilitate the access to the digitalization of SMEs. We know that among the actors of the value chain, the SMEs are the ones that make more difficulty because of the cost, because of the time, because of the workload to pass to the digitalization, and also because for white collars in general, it's easier to adopt this methodology of work, whereas for SMEs, it's a real change in their normal practice. And also we developed this training activity to make everyone aware about the tools that were developed during the project. Who are the potential users? Here you can see a list. So small and medium-sized construction companies, larger construction companies and constructors, of course, designer and consultants of any type, manufacturers, service provider, but also technicians within the public authorities and as well as real estate managers. That's because the tools developed during the project cover mainly the initial 2 phases of the design, the renovation design process, but also cover the design phase, the choice of technical solutions, and the management and the monitoring of some of the performances. Therefore, all the actors can really benefit from this training activity. The training activity that we produced collects the main results, the main pillars of the project. The digital workflows are explained, of course, the tools that were developed, the results at the pilot site, so the application of the tools at the pilot site, and of course the so-called one-stop access platform, that is the main platform where all the tools can be found. The training course of BIM4Ren is developed basically in 2 parts. There is a first part subdivided in 12 modules. These modules cover a wide range of topics, from a more general understanding of the concept of the renovation wave and the role of digitalization to all the steps of the digitalization of the renovation project. So how can be enhanced the collaboration among the actors, how BIM can support the management of information, the focus on geometry acquisition, 3D scanning, how to design with the support of BIM4Ren tools a positive energy building, how face multi-criteria analysis such as energy efficiency, internal environmental quality, etc. The presentation of the 3 case studies in Italy, France, and Spain, and also it are presented the platforms, so the OSAP and the tools. Specifically for the tools, there will be a part of the training where are collected some of the presentations that the tool developers did during the development of the project, where they showed some demos of the use of these training tools, such as the one that will be presented by Antoine later on today. Where to access this training activity? We are about to finalize the website that we called internally a legacy website, meaning that it is a website different from the main one of the project, where all the results of the project are collected. And within these results, there will be a dedicated page, a page dedicated to the training, where you can basically find all the information and the material on the training activity of the project in 4 languages, the main one in English, but also Italian, Spanish, and French as well. The URL of the renovation, of the website is BIM4Renovation.eu. It will be active since the 30th of September 2022. What you will find inside, for each of the modules that you saw before, you will find a little page where you can see the description of the module, the benefits, the duration of each module, and you will be able to download the presentation. And for each of the tools, you will find, again, an explanatory presentation of the tool, and where available, also a video explaining the demo of how this tool works. So very soon, online, all the material from the training activity of BIM4Ren will be available. And this was my last slide. I'm happy to answer questions, if any, at the end of the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Valentina. It was very quick, and I think we understood exactly what the legacy website is going to be about. I'm very happy about it, especially that it is actually developing certain languages more than English, because as you know, for construction SMEs, that is something that's really important. Now we'll give the floor to Professor Jacob Bitz. Please, the floor is yours.
Yes, good morning. Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me and see my presentation in just a second. I'll share that with you.
We can see you.
I'll have
okay. It's now the presentation. Perfect.
More important is the info. Welcome everybody. I'll make this one short. I'll just prepare a little overview of actually what the approach and what the methods and that we approached in BIM4Ren over the last 4 years, and present. And we'll also, so this has 2 parts. It's a little overview of what we did in the background, and this one-stop access platform that has been mentioned time and again, and then to introduce some of the more practical hands-on tools that face the end users, just to give you a little glimpse of all the awesome activities and all the awesome research and development that we've been conducting over the years in BIM4Ren. As has been introduced also by Valentina and by Antoine earlier, the core idea of this is to make an inventory of all the things that we actually need in renovation tasks, as opposed to greenfield building information modeling approaches, where we do have perfect tools and perfect processes, and everybody knows what to do. Here in BIM4Ren, the main task was to make an inventory of what we already have, of how practitioners actually work in the field, and then to combine these things and say, here are some tools that are dedicated to renovation processes that are dedicated to people in the field that cannot be yet done with things on a greenfield project. So what is a brownfield equivalent for this? Now, central to this, and you've seen the slides before, is this idea of binding different sorts of technology, of binding different methods, of binding different processes together into a platform. And I'm going to scare you now for just a few seconds, because this is what it looks on the back end. This is the technical view on our one-stop access platform. But since nobody can, hardly anyone can make interpretation of this, let me break it down for you in somewhat more in an overview. So if we're dealing with an existing building, such as one of the ones presented in our practical use cases, such as an average apartment, a multi-story apartment building, then we face all sorts of information that we either have already in the form of conventional drawings. When we scan them, they're digital, but only in a limited field. And when we look at how these at how the building actually performs in terms of energy, where we make inventories and cadasters of what has been used to build the building in the first place, and where we might have even truly digital information that we generate from either existing drawing, or we have quick ways to. I'm sure you have seen these scan to BIM projects where we try to scan things from a point cloud and then derive building information models from them. And now the challenge is actually to bind all of these tools and all of these kinds of information into a coherent data space, if you want, in a so-called common data environment, in order to make them accessible to practitioners in the field on all the blue colors and the white colors, and to really integrate this existing data into one particular model. And our approach that we took in BIM4Ren, and that we developed this framework of the one-stop access platform, was to integrate them using distributed graphs and using a distributed network of models and of kinds of information that can all be represented in a coherent space. I'm sure you have, for those of you who have started to look into building information modeling, this is kind of the internationally agreed, the so-called BIM wedge that we agreed upon to move towards so to come to vendor independent software tools and to data exchange formats that allow us to integrate all these kinds of heterogeneous information coming from all these different stakeholders throughout the whole life cycle. And parts of these are already developed in many standardization criteria, and others is what we have contributed as a collective here, as a consortium in BIM4Ren from the various angles, from those industry software developers, from the practitioners in the field, and from academia. So one of the things that we're looking for, that we're striving towards, and where we have contributed to in the BIM4Ren project, is to come to an interoperable way to bind all of these information types together. And as one of the core backgrounds of this, next to the more service-oriented one-stop access platform, is this notion of binding heterogeneous information into containers. So in other words, looking at how we can actually take these different sorts of information and bind them net them and web them into a continuous graph. So if we have a particular building, and if we have a particular energy audit, and if we have things like material reports that give us very specific information, how do we actually bring them together, and how do we use all the tools, some of which we're going to see later on in just a bit? How do we take them and take the information they produce, but also the information that are required in order to do our, for example, the energy audit? How do we bring them into a coherent common data environment? And this is what we this is just parts and very visual parts of what we did in this project. is to bind these things together in so-called information in so-called information container data deliveries, where we're now able to actually take from one particular kind of information and to transfer this into another kind of information that are usually required by renovation processes. Again, this is based on what we have looked at in process models. This is based on what we have identified as the necessary input and output to these operations. And this is a very visual way, let's say, to make a very short to present this to you in a very short way. To make things a little bit more practical is let me present you as one of the first tools of the 3 tools that we're going to present you to this morning. Is the context-aware image acquisition tool that has been customized and that has been tailored to exactly these renovation needs, which is the approach of this is to overcome the huge amounts of information that is purely handled on a paper-based trail, and to digitize these about information that is very specific and very specific to renovation tasks. We need to acquire things or information about existing buildings. So to challenge and to overcome this challenge of having mostly analog ways of working with this, we are introducing one of these tools, which allows you to capture information right in a digital model. And here's how this looks like. Much of the information, if you don't have any information at all of your existing building, such as an apartment building, then at least you're going to have some sort of either digital or scanned or photographed or even sketched kind of a floor plan. And this Kaya tool now allows you to register your position using a standard cell phone, to register yourself on the floor plan, to walk through the building as you as an architect, for example, make a first assessment of the building, and to make visual annotations, audio annotations, and photographs of where you actually are. And the novel thing here is that we can couple what you actually see and where you take notes about, and the annotations that you make into the room. So this blue camera icon represents actually where you are at the time of making the annotation, where you are in the either on the floor plan, or if you have the 3D model, to make annotations about this. Make your comments on what you have stumbled upon there, on the issues you have to address during a renovation process, or on the issues that you stumble upon while renovating and while making it fit, and then actually transfer this into your digital 3D model, because the position and the orientation from which you have taken the photos and from which you made the audio annotations have been recorded along automatically with standard hardware. So things that architects, for example, have in their pockets anyway, and made this available by a standardized information formats, the so-called BCF format, which then allows you to use the software that you're already using in order to capture things in reality and capture things in existing buildings. This is just one of the tools that we would like to introduce to you. And now I'll give over to Antoine again to introduce two additional tools. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jacob. Indeed, it was a very, very good exercise to summarize all that in 10 minutes. Please go ahead now, Antoine, the floor is yours.
Okay, so following Jacob doing some demonstration, I'll try to do it myself. Okay, so I might go with a live demonstration depending on the time frame, hopefully. Okay, so the first of the tools, I will present 2 tools. Okay, so Jacob actually focused on the very initial data gathering, actually on-site collection information, both, let's say, geometrical and also other kind of information. And so here we are going to check 2 different tools, one which is about, okay, how can we exploit actually 2D layouts and transform those into BIM model. Okay, so, and another one is once we have this BIM model, how we can use it for, in this case, solar evaluation to assess the solar potential of the building, potential installation of PV panels, and so on. So this is actually normally one could say at an early stage of a renovation project when you are still either as a building owner, if you're a social housing organization, for example, or wondering, let's say, what kind of renovation that could be carried out, or it could also be on for contractors, designers assessing that for a building owner. So the first one is developed by WiseBeam. WiseBeam is a French, let's say, startup. They are they are SME, and they are, let's say, using the potential of artificial intelligence in assessing, analyzing a 2D layout. Okay, it could be a PDF, PNG, DVG. It doesn't matter that much. You can even scan. I mean, if you have it printed, you can scan it, import it as let's say image, a PNG, and it will let's say detect the walls, the windows, because there are some convention in the drawing, obviously, of those elements. So it will detect that and transform it into automatically into a BIM model. Let's try to see it with a bit more detail. So what you do if you access to Plans to BIM software, well, there is a management layer just to account sharing and so on, dropping the files. Then you can import again this file, typically such a 2D layout, and in the end you will receive a BIM model as different formats from AFC. And so what it has as features is once you have imported, as you can see, the layout, it will recognize, in this case, the walls in red, the window, the opening in yellow, the slab in orange, let's say, and it will be based on the scale you have to put as an input, and the spaces, how the rooms, let's say. And then if there are any potential errors, or if you want to adjust it, you can actually do that quite easily, to adjust, to add a wall, to correct, to move some points, and it is all online. And so there are two main use cases. Okay, one would be to if, for example, there is an ongoing process, but it's not still let's say a building, but you want to digitalize it and you want to go for BIM, it could be done based on those layouts. But for a building that is already built, this is either you have existing layouts, or you can use different kind of tools for collecting this kind of layout, either through scan or surveyor, you know. And it can, in this case, with off-site modeling, this is one of the examples that we had in the project, also, let's say 5 towers in the suburbs of Paris. So out of quite business as usual, you know, a layout, we have this possibility to create, as you can see, one floor here, and you can even see the elements, the objects composing the BIM model. And when it's elevated with just 4 floors, and it gives a very quick, efficient way to have this first BIM model. It's not to be, I mean, it could be compared actually like to this kind of scan to, well, to collect points, and from those points you can then create the BIM model. It's not the same accuracy for sure. It's not the same objective. It's not also the same costs. But in this case, again, it's aiming at a low cost, let's say, quick quick model. And well, this is the idea. And what I want also to stress in these projects, they also, meaning WiseBeam, they are doing something which is at let's say not so mature, but working on doing the same kind of development for HVAC layouts. So for these kind of heating, ventilation, air conditioning, you know, layouts, which are also quite typical. You can also see that the reddish is for the hot water, the white, the blue. I mean, it's either in and out, and you can see that it's based again on templates. So they recognize those templates automatically, and they are able to integrate that into the BIM model. So it might not be as mature, but you can see how artificial intelligence can, in this case, let's say, solve what we could present as quite practical problems. And so, as a summary for plans to BIM, so it's as a SaaS, so meaning it's online. You can have access to it, you can register, you can create free accounts, and then regarding the business model, it's either, well, one BIM coin, it's called. You buy one and you can export one model, or soon there will be some monthly subscription with a fee. It's really easy to use. I mean, there are tutorial videos accessible. There is this internal integrated editor where you can modify the layout, modify the BIM model. And well, you can actually do all of that, and you just pay when you export the model, if the model is okay. For example, if you are not confident enough in the initial layout and you realize that it's of poor quality, you're not going to export it, and so you're not going to pay. Okay, and so more or less, as summary, we can say that you can have this first BIM model in 10 minutes. It's really achievable, and more or less the cost for one model is 20 euros, and it's absolutely operational. So you can test it yourself by going to this Plans to BIM website. Another tool is BIM Solar. So the idea there is for urban planners, architects, energy consultants, when they are wondering, should I install PV panels on my building? To make it simple, well, we all know that the question can arise, let's say, and with energy prices increasing dramatically, the question should be even asked more often. And so the idea is to import this very same BIM model we will see, and to assist in this early assessment. It's not for definitive validation, but it's at the point where the question is asked. So you can import this very BIM model that we have seen, okay, the one that was created with Plans to BIM in 10 minutes. You can import it in the software, and then you can easily install, let's say, some PV panels on this model, on the roof, on the facade. You can tilt, whatever. It has access to a huge database. So with a bit more detailed presentation and with some animation, I don't know how it goes with the live transmission, but so it's a desktop software, so it's not online tool, but you have to install it on your own computer. It's free. It's so to assist in this solar design, you are not going to modify the building, just install those PV panels, and it has access to those the information related to the panels come from BIM object database that where the information comes from actually from the manufacturers themselves. So what you can, as you can see in those short demo, you can see how to you place those PV, you arrange that, and so on. And so yeah, it's based on OpenBIM. There is also a Revit plugin that exists, and again a huge database. And once those systems are installed, there is actually even a guide to use for the electrical wiring, just to put it simply. And then, well, there is assessment for each panel, for a group of panels. You can see either yearly, monthly, hourly, the electrical production. You can also see the losses due to the current in the wiring. There can be a cost assessment and even, let's say, a self-consumption scenarios based on hypotheses that can be refined. So that's the idea. I'm not sure actually I shared. I'm just going to. I think it's possible.
Yes. Yes, okay. Thank you.
So back to
Antoine. Thank you, because indeed we are chasing time now. Actually, if there are questions, I will give 30 seconds for people to manifest themselves. Otherwise, we will proceed either in the chat or even raising your hand if you have any. I know it's a lot of information. We try to be as short as possible. Time is really, really something that we value. I see a first question. Will the digital information gathered by these tools be interchangeable with other systems of BIM? So I guess this is a question that Antoine or Jacob could take.
Well, I'll start quickly. The first tool I presented is Plans to BIM. This is the tool that actually initiates the BIM process by creating the BIM model. And the BIM model is created in IFC format, which is the standard for Open BIM. And so it is absolutely interoperable for, let's say, other services that can exploit the BIM model. Okay. The other one, the BIM Solar, actually you import the BIM model and you import BIM objects, but the information that is created is not added to the BIM model. You have not put more information in the BIM model. You exploit the BIM model, but you're not putting more information. It's not a design tool. And just very, very simply here, and I guess Jacob would agree, it's one thing to exploit the information of the BIM model to add more practical services, but it's trickier, more complex to add information in this BIM model. So we kind of distinguish those two, and because to make those tools easy and accessible, it's quite important.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? I don't see anything in the chat. So I think we can proceed. And now we will make a kind of switch here because we'll ask my colleague Spiros Mathiodakis to join us as he will moderate the last session of this event. Thank you very much to the BIM4Ren partners for their presentations. Then we will make a quick wrap up because we have still a few information to share about BIM4Ren. The floor is yours now, Spiros.
Thank you, Fernando. So indeed, having a small switch here. I hope you can all hear me well. I will now invite our speakers to have a little bit more political discussion. We can start with Mr. Guido Lena from SME United. I invite all participants to switch on their cameras so we can have a more lively debate. So all of the speakers. So Guido, my first question to you would be, what do you think is the importance of SMEs for the digital and environmental objectives of the EU, given that you have a more global overview of the SME world?
Okay, thank you, Spiros, and thanks CBC for the invitation. Well, I think SMEs are actually vital for these two objectives because they represent 99.8% of all the EU businesses, and they are also the main source of employment in the EU. So it's clear that if they are not involved, there will any strategy in any kind, any sector, digitalization, sustainable development goals, decarbonization won't be effective. We won't go anywhere. On top of that, if all these SMEs are not actually included, there will be huge problems, social cohesion, lack of growth in Europe. So we have to find a way at European and national level to include these companies. And I guess very briefly, the best thing would be that we have an enabling framework at European national level, which ensure that these two strategies, green and digital, are pushed, but in a consistent way so that they can enhance each other. And then this framework also enable SMEs to join. So there should be definitely use of the think for small principle, use of SMEs test to check that everything is okay, but also concrete tools to help SMEs, to give them information, technical assistance, better access to finance, upskilling and reskilling. So definitely we should go on with also giving more capacity building to national and local SME organization, because SMEs turn to them first for advice, so both in these both areas. And also for SMEs which are not linked to any business organization, more one-stop shop for energy sustainability, also set up a public authority at local level. And I guess that it also would be very important to foster cooperation between politicians, social partners, and training and institution and schools in order to be sure that we anticipate SME needs, that there is no mismatching, that also we are sure that also teachers are skilled and reskilled to do the job. And we also increase the attractiveness of these new jobs in the construction sector, because that's also one of the issues. The construction sector is mainly still seen with a heavy, heavy job for men, but maybe not so attractive for young people who want to have a degree and other things. So I think that it's important to give a new message, a fresh message of the construction sector, what it can give, what it can offer, and also link it with these new jobs in green and green technology and innovation and digitalization. I think these are my main point. I wouldn't like to take too much time, too long. So
no worries. Thank you very much, Guido. I think you already gave quite an overview of the issues at hand. So I think now we can move to Ms. Valentina Marino from GVC Italia. So Valentina, it was mentioned also earlier during other presentations, but I would like to ask you to focus a little bit more on the BIM4Ren white paper and tell us a few words about how do you think it's relevant in the current energy context for Europe.
Sure, thank you for the question. Yes, first of all, let's explain better what is the white paper itself. The white paper is a document that was produced by the partner of the BIM4Ren project, and basically it's a document that explains what are the main challenges in energy renovation projects and how BIM can support to overcome these challenges, as well as there is a detailed list and analysis of barriers and opportunities that the use of BIM offers for solving problems like supporting on-site construction, solving interoperability issues among the actors of the value chain, and so on. It explains also the methodologies and tools developed during the project, and finally, it shows experimental application as well as the core part is the series of recommendations that are listed for all the actors of the value chain. So why the white paper is important? It is important because it explains how the SMEs and the workers can be more effective in delivering the renovation project, and also in this sense facing the energy crisis. So what is their role within all these energy efficiency issue at the global level? Their practitioner and workers, but also SMEs can find the answers on how the digitalization can support the challenges of renovation, but also that are mainly the collection of data, how to make design choices and understanding performances early in the design phase, and also how reducing costs and the management of energy use and so on. So the white paper itself, it's really a document to raise awareness among all the actors of the value chain on what is their role within the energy efficiency process, and make them understanding that they can do their part to meet the energy crisis challenges, and also to understand how the BIM and the digitalization can really enhance their role and support them to be more effective and more practically, let's say, involved and useful to solve these challenges.
Thank you very much, Valentina. Now I think we can move to a question to Fernando. Fernando, what do you think is currently the most pressing policy issue regarding securing a skilled workforce for the future of the construction sector?
Thank you, Spiros. I mean, skills is a let's say let's put it an historic and structural issue in the construction industry. As far as we know, we have always faced difficulties to attract new people, to retain the workers, to put up the schemes and the programs to upskill and reskill the workers according to the evolution of the sector. So this is something that it goes beyond the current, let's say, political context. But it is true also that we have another consideration to keep in mind is that education is a national competence. So when we talk about skills, we also have this situation where there are very different considerations for vocational trades according to the country. So one thing that we would need is to better align somehow the consideration that we have for manual trades. I'm Belgian myself, here in Belgium. Let's say vocational education is the last resort. It's really for people when nothing else works. While we know that in certain countries, I'm thinking of Germany, there is a real consideration for persons that have let's say a certain knowledge that is related to craftsmanship, that is related to all the construction trades that we have in mind. So when you have the difference, that is an issue. We know also for make it clear to people that we are fully aware that there are many things that we need to change, and one of those would be also the inclusivity of our sector. As of today, we know that more or less 10% of the workforce is made of female workers in the construction industry, and most of them being, let's say, in not the hands-on of professions. And I think the evolution the evolution of the sector now allows us to better, indeed, as Guido said, to better channel the information in a way that we show that construction is beyond the stereotypes for many, many reasons, and that now we should be way more inclusive in the way we brand ourselves as a sector in order to show that we are aware of the environmental importance that we have, of the societal image that we have. We need to change that image, and also of all the added value that our sector could bring. But all that, yes, it's to make to put it a general context about the issue of skills in construction. Now, in the current policy context, something that is missing, and we know that in EBC because we have been questioned from all sides of the construction value chain, from let's say also institutions, policymakers of all kinds, about data, an assessment of how many workers there are out there, and actually that information is missing. And we consider that now one very important issue to solve would be to have a real picture of what the skill gaps might be at national level, so that we can actually quantify what we need as a skilled workforce in order to deliver the environmental objectives and the digital objectives that the European Union has put on the table. So I would say a critical point would be indeed to gather that information so that we know how many installers we need, how many plumbers we need, how many electricians we need, so that knowing what is the real situation, we can then say, okay, we need that amount of skilled workforce in these very specific trades, so that then we can also influence the training programs in a way that we lead to actually attract those people in actually the fields that we need them to be active.
Thank you, Fernando. Thank you very much. I think we are approaching the end of our session, so I have a final question for all of you three speakers. If you can give us your insights on, I think, a question that covers overall the theme of today's session. So what, according to you, is the main challenge in making the renovation wave a reality? What do you think is the main obstacle in delivering this effort? Yes, Valentina, maybe you want to start.
Yes, thank you. Really shortly, to me, the main challenge is really the involvement, the collaboration, and the empowerment of all the actors within the renovation project in a way that they are very effective with their specific role within the complexity of the intervention of a renovation work that must reach very high energy efficiency objectives. And I think that the results of the BIM4Ren project really can make a difference in this sense.
Thank you very much, Guido.
Well, from my point of view, I think one of the biggest bottlenecks at the moment is the cost is financing, because I mean there are citizens and companies which should do this, but in the last years, a little bit with the pandemic, now with the skyrocketing energy cost, I mean, people have less money available. Everything costs more. It's difficult to get financing, and so even if you want, that can be a huge obstacle. So these should be streamlined.
Thank you, Guido. And Fernando, the final word.
Yes, I think I can, but I agree, but with both statements. In EBC, we consider that any digital and environmental ambition we envisage for the construction and the built environment, let's say, needs indeed the collaboration of all relevant parties, and because without them, without that collaboration, nothing will really work. We won't manage to reach those objectives, and even more so if with, let's say, the construction SMEs that we represent, because as everyone knows, construction sector is made of 95% of micro companies, 99% of SMEs. So this collaborative effort is very important, and it should have a clear, let's say, role for construction SMEs and their representatives. Then I can also, but agree with Guido, our sector, as the European economy, the European society, has suffered from many crises over the last 20 years. And the most recent one, the most unfortunate one right now, being the impact of the war in Ukraine, with the prices of materials and of energy increasing. We have our SMEs, which are daily actors of our local economies, struggling to make work the projects as they were. Indeed, prices are rising for everyone, and we cannot impact the price of customers because they're also suffering from the current situation. So we need a dialogue there in order to find a situation to that. Otherwise, we will be stopped in our activity. We're already aware of situations where we even though the demand is there sometimes, but now we need also to face the reality that even if demand is there, maybe the prices that are currently in the market are not the right ones to deliver that project. So we need to find a solution to that issue. But then I also think that to make the renovation wave a reality, considering the very high ambitions on the environmental side, the digital side, we need also to consider that it's not all about facts and figures. It's not all about figures, it's also about facts, sorry, in the sense that there are people behind all those ambitions that need to do the operational work, to renovate the buildings, to skill the people, right? So we definitely need, and that would be, I would emphasize this analysis of what the real situation is regarding the workforce, so that we can build from there. So without that skills panorama, it will be very difficult to keep on discussing about ambitions. We can be very ambitious, amazing, but which are maybe far from the reality, and the reality check regarding the workforce for me is right now the major issue regarding the renovation wave.
Thank you, Fernando. I think we're a couple of minutes ahead of time, so I think if someone from the audience would like to ask a question, we have the possibility. I think everything was covered potentially, so I think I can hand over to you, Fernando, for a final closing of the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Spiros. Thank you, Valentina. Thank you very much, Guido. Indeed, if there are questions, we still have a few minutes, but thanks a lot for your interventions. I will give 10 seconds to see if there are questions. Otherwise, I will proceed to the rest of the program, which is a summary of what we discussed today. Great. Okay. Again, thank you very much to all the attendees. I think we try to, in a very short time, try to cover as many aspects as possible of the BIM4Ren project and its relevance for the current political context. The idea was indeed to, in addition to a presentation of the project itself, to show you why it is important to have this kind of exchanges between people that are relevant for the discussion about the greening and digitalization of our construction industry. We're very happy that the European Commission representative Electra Papadaki today joined us, so that we understood why BIM4Ren fits the conversation, why we need to make the most of relevant initiatives and SME-friendly, SME-oriented initiatives, because we do know that without them we will have more than a bottleneck, we will have a real hurdle to deliver the greening and digitalization of the sector. Also, as you saw with the presentation of the training program, we of BIM4Ren, we have again kept in mind this idea of being SME friendly, of being SME oriented in a way that we know that the material and the training process could be very costly, could be very long. You know, when we talk about a construction SME, micro company, let's say, we talk with companies less than 10 people. Sometimes we are talking companies with 3, 4, 5 people. So to dedicate money and time to training is actually a huge effort and requires a lot of resources, which by nature construction SMEs not necessarily have. Limited human resources, limited financial resources is the reality. That's why the training program was made in a way that it is available in certain languages. That's also a major issue. We need the most relevant initiatives to be translated so that they reach or entrepreneurs, most of them being very local. So that's a part of the job, but also we know that innovation is evolving, and there are a lot of, let's say, new tools out there, new methodologies there, but there is a gap between that innovation being developed and the reality of the daily activities of our construction SMEs. So in order to catch their attention, we also need tools that are actually bringing a quite fast and direct added value to their daily activities. And that's why today, with the sample of tools we showed you, we showed tools that are very easy to use, that are affordable, that are accessible, and that are also available, or at least the intention was to also have those tools accessible in different languages, because that is the way for construction entrepreneurs to understand the added value of the digitalization of their processes. Next to that, I would like also to emphasize why EBC is very proud and very happy to participate in this project. It's because we felt this was the right attempt in order to gather all that information that we needed. We still need innovation targeting the residential market and the renovation market. We needed digital tools to be SME friendly, SME oriented. We needed the collaboration of several actors, not only construction stakeholders per se, but also researchers, training centers. We needed the collaboration of many different type of actors in order to have a real conversation of how this can work for everyone. And BIM4Ren was kind of the project that had all those elements in a single pot, and we managed to deal with this amount of information in a way that it's translated in a simpler, let's say in simpler messages that we can share now across. I'm just need to tell you that for those that are interested, this afternoon, actually, there is another session that is the 6th webinar of BIM4Ren that is going to be dedicated to live demonstrations of tools. So not only the 3 here, if I'm not mistaken, we have more than 25 tools, but live demonstrations of those tools. The event will take place online this afternoon at 4, if I'm not mistaken. Please correct someone. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And these live demonstrations are going to be focused on the experiences on the pilot sites in France, Italy, and Spain. So without further ado, I will thank you again. Please have a look at the BIM4Ren website to know more about what BIM4Ren did. Also have a look at the BIM4Ren legacy website as it was presented with the training program, and feel free to reach to EBC or any other BIM4Ren partner if you need more information. I think there is still a possibility for you to get in touch with the developers of certain tools if those are the ones that interest you. Thank you very much, and with that, I will close the event. Have a good day.